Hi, the target group I chose for this presentation is the intellectually disabled, and that is because I work with intellectually disabled young women in a group home setting. And this type of disability occurs for a number of reasons. It could be genetic with things like Down syndrome, or from problems during pregnancy or even birth itself. It can also manifest when the young child or toddler experiences severe trauma through things like neglect, physical and sexual abuse. It occurs when the brain's neurological pathways are still developing, but instead of following the correct path or map, they make one of their own. In doing this, it makes it harder for someone with this type of disability to enjoy the day-to-day activities that we all take for granted. $880,000 or 22% of people in Australia have an intellectual disability, and that's out of the 4 million nationwide with some form of either physical or mental disability. That's 1 in 5 people according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. And as the 2019 report shows, we all experience some form of discrimination, but who would like to go to work or school each day knowing that this is what we are going to face, just because of the way we look, speak, or even think? Nearly half of the people with an intellectual disability, aged 5 and over, have faced discrimination either at school or in the workplace. Even though the numbers include all disabilities, it's interesting to note that Australia ranks the lowest among OECD countries for the relative income of people with disabilities, and that workforce participation for people with disabilities is 54% compared to 83% for people without a disability. And also take note of the fact that mental illnesses are amongst the greatest cause of disability, giving the person a diminished quality of life and very low productivity. According to Australian Council of Social Services, or ACOS, and the University of New South Wales Poverty and Inequality Report of 2018, 264,000 people with a disability live below the poverty line. And it is also, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, we can see that in 2015, 27% of people with a disability in the workforce reported that their employer was the main cause of discrimination, along with 18% saying it was colleagues within the workplace. This sort of discrimination in the workplace deters a lot of people from being employed, as they get nothing from it, such as feeling worthy of having the job and some self-esteem, and just wanting to be a valued member of the community. And as we know, if someone starts to avoid day-to-day activities or avoids social interactions, this can greatly impact on all other aspects of their life, leaving them at a higher risk of more adverse outcomes in their physical health, along with social isolation, which reduces their employment opportunities, leaving them more vulnerable to poverty. Less than half, or 48%, of people with a disability are actually employed. That's because there is little information and advice for people that are hoping to enter the workforce. And with government agencies not sure of who is supposed to be doing what, leaves people unsure of where they need to go to access the supports they need to maintain employment. There is also the other financial costs to consider, such as additional transport and clothing, which unfortunately is not subsidised, along with the fear of losing income support and other services associated with receiving welfare, such as cheaper public transport, healthcare concessions. This stops a lot of people from gaining employment and keeping employment. There are two ways to connect poverty and intellectual disabilities. The first is that poverty causes the intellectual disability through the person's exposure to environmental and psychosocial hazards that come along when the person is living in poverty. The second is either the families that support intellectually disabled children or an intellectually disabled adult are at a higher risk of poverty due to the financial and social impact of caring for someone with a disability, or as an adult being unable to enter the workforce from lack of support services and being a product of their environment, with things like poor housing situations, lack of proper nutrition, low self-esteem, and various physical health issues. All of this, combined with the lack of employment and society's misconceptions about people with an intellectual disability, means that most adults either living independently with a family or in a group home live below the poverty line.